Hello, my name is Lainey Fitzpatrick, and in my coat of arms speech, 4-H was one of my biggest symbols. And in 4-H, you do lots of projects such as food preservation and canning. So for my demonstration, I'd like to show you how I make my favorite blueberry spice jam. I hope that you all can learn about food preservation and how to make very nice jam. Before we can begin making the jam, we have to sterilize the jars and the lids. Now, the jars and lids have to be completely submerged in water and brought up to a boil. And once it's brought up to a boil, then they're all sterilized, and then you place them over here until your jam is ready to be served into the jars. These are the ingredients that I'll be using to make the blueberry spice jam. You will need 2½ pints of ripe blueberries, a tablespoon of lemon juice, a ½ teaspoon of ground nutmeg or cinnamon, 3/4 cup of water, 5½ cups of sugar, and 1 box of pectin, or in this case, 6 teaspoons. If you don't know what pectin is, it's either a dry or a gel ingredient used to make jam and jelly. You add this to your fruit syrup and it thickens it up and gives it that jam and jelly texture that we all know. While you're starting out on your jam, make sure that you're sterilizing your jars and your lids. But the first step is to get the blueberries into a saucepan and to mash them up so that you don't have any big chunks of blueberries in your jam. Once you mash the blueberries, then add the lemon juice and the water and the spices. Once you're done with that, turn the stove on to a medium heat. After that, you also need to gradually stir in your pectin, and once that's done, the mixture needs to come to a full rolling boil, and I'll show you what that looks like. We're adding all of the wet ingredients and the pectin now, because once it starts boiling, then the syrup will thicken. And then we'll add the sugar later, because if we add it right now, then the syrup will be too thick, and it won't boil, and it won't create the jelly texture that we want in this blueberry spice jam. So as you can hear from the pot, the water is boiling, so that means that the jars inside are completely sterilized. So now I get to use this. It's tongs made specially for these kind of jars. So I get to pick them out and place them on the mat over here. And then it's time for the lids to be sterilized. I wasn't able to show you getting the jars out of the water because it's a two-hand job. But once you have the jars in your tongs, then you want to slowly turn them to get the water out of them, just so you don't burn yourself sloshing it all the way to the towel area. So here it is at a rolling boil. You can't quite see it over the steam, but it's rapidly bubbling and it's not losing the bubbles. So now's the time where we will add the sugar. So once the jam has reached that 1-minute boiling point, then you need to scoop off all the foam off the top because that's not what we want in the jam. And after that, you're officially ready to move on to putting the jam into the jars. So when you're doing this, you need a 1/4 inch of headspace on the jam. If you don't have enough jam in the jars, then it won't can properly. And it's also what the judges want for 4-H. Before you put the lids on the jam, also make sure to wipe around the edges just so that your lids don't get stuck when you're putting them on and off. Once you have all of your jam in their jars, then it's time for the final step, which is back into the sterilization pot to seal the deal. Once they're in there, they have to boil for 5 minutes, and you should hear them pop, but that just means that they're sealing up. There's nothing to worry about. Now, after your jam has been in the water bath, you can easily tell if your jam is done. This is a can that hasn't been pressed and sealed, and you can hear the noise and feel the lid bending. But when you look at the one that has been sealed up, there's no noise, there's no bend to the lid. That means that you're officially done with your jam, and the only thing to do now is enjoy with toast. I hope that you enjoyed this presentation. I hope that you found it easy to understand and clear to follow. And I also hope that you enjoy your own jam and jelly making. So after watching the video, I'd like to take this time to say that I believe homemade jam is well worth the hassle. Even though it can be messy and time-consuming, it's a lot better than store-bought jam. And you get the reward of enjoying your own jam and sharing it with others. And you also get to know all of the ingredients that go into it. Thank you for watching the presentation, and I hope that you enjoy learning this new skill.